Hello and welcome to the Overwhelm is Optional podcast. I'm Heidi, Marke, coach and biggest cheerleader for successful but secretly overwhelmed women. As well as weekly episodes here on the podcast, you can find out more about what I offer by going to heidimarke.co.uk. Are you surprised at how completely overwhelmed you feel? Are you used to not only coping with your own life, but helping others cope with theirs? If so, this episode is for you. So, if you're used to not only coping, but being the reliable one, often in a sea of chaos, ring a bell? If people ask you to do things because they know you'll get them done, so you're the go-to person to get things done because you get things done. You don't let people down. If you've worked hard to get to a position of professional respect and you like that position for lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is that you can help people, that you can change how things are done. If you've a lot of people depending on you, so actually you're carrying quite a lot, but you do this willingly, it's part of who you are, you just love helping people, you pride yourself on not letting people down, this is just part of who you are. You are somebody who copes well with their own life, who does a lot, achieves a lot, but suddenly you're feeling more and more overwhelmed. Then it can come as a real shock to realise that. Because it doesn't make any sense. If you're used to helping other people who are feeling overwhelmed, if you're the person that people come to and go, I can't manage all of this, I can't work out how to do this, can you help me? Then it can be like a real feeling of threatening of who you are, because it doesn't make sense that you're overwhelmed. And it can actually feel like, well, to me, it felt like it was something I should solve. I didn't really understand what was going on when it happened to me. And so I'm just going to describe some of the things that might be coming up for you and just see if any of them resonate. So I think one of the biggest ones is inconvenient tear leakage. Now, I sent an email out a couple of weeks ago saying I was just recovering from an illness and I was feeling a bit teary, and one of the lovely people contacted me and said, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, I am. And there was a real reason I mentioned the fact that I was feeling teary in that email, and that's because I'm now very comfortable. Now I've solved for myself and for my clients the inconvenient tear leakage and tears. So I don't know about you, but I'm very sensitive, I'm very emotional, and tears come easily to me. So I'll cry at a film, I'll cry at a baby animal, I'll cry at a sunset. It's just, my partner says to me, if I say, and I was crying, and he'll say, well, is that really surprising? Because I am an emotional person. But there's a difference to me between having comfortable tears. So for me, the exhaustion after not feeling very well, I noticed that I was a bit teary. And the reason I shared that very gently in an email was to make it normal. So it's okay to have tears. It's okay to be emotional. But what's not okay for us as successful professional women is to have inconvenient tear leakage. There's a difference. Inconvenient tear leakage isn't the kind of tears that come because you're happy or you're sad, where that's just a natural expression and you feel safe. Because it's different, isn't it? Having sudden tears come at the joy of a sunset, you feel safe. That's being overwhelmed by the joy of the world, and it just, for me, it comes out physically, and it probably does more so now because I'm so comfortable with it. So it's just like, this is just my life's amazing. I love my life, and I recognise that because from listening to my body, that sometimes tears just want to come, and that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm always like happy about it. Sometimes I'm like trying to make a serious point in a conversation and I'm crying and I'm just laughing at myself going, for goodness sake, why am I crying? Because I don't always like that, because sometimes if it's taking away from what I'm trying to say, it annoys me. But it's not terrible, because the kind of people I'm having those kind of deeply emotional conversations with are people who are close to me. So they know me, so it's okay. It's just like a bit annoying because like, just ignore the tears, just listen to what I'm saying. I'm making a serious point. And it's actually usually results in some laughing about me being very sensitive. And that's gentle, that's accepting, that's all good. Inconvenient tear leakage is when you're in a meeting or you're driving home. Now, there's a difference between those two, isn't there? Because crying in the car on the way home is not as bad because nobody can see, but it's still a problem. I mean, I remember having some real like major breaking out in tears and having to pull over because actually it wasn't particularly safe to drive. So the the tear leakage on the way home isn't great either, but at least it's not in public, right? Because we want to save face. I mean, when you've worked really, really hard to set up a business and have clients, or when you've worked really, really hard in a career and you've got into this position of respect and you're valued, you don't want to lose that because you're really overwhelmed and it's resulting in inconvenient tear leakage. That's not okay. There's nothing okay about that. It's not safe. People will judge you. It does make you feel like you're losing it, and it's just horrid. And I would argue that for me, actually, that in a way that was like not the icing on the cake, it's the opposite. The icing on the cake. It's the final straw. It's like, this isn't okay because I can't do my job and have inconvenient tear leakage, because inconvenient tear leakage means, well, it's inconvenient. It's going to come at the worst possible time. And that's not okay. That's like, you can avoid getting that stressed and overwhelmed. You can do something about the overwhelm well before that happens. And I highly recommend you do, because that point is really dodgy. Because if you end up crying in front of the wrong person, it can obviously really affect how people see you at work, and it does matter. And I'm not saying that in a pretend to be somebody other than you're not. Of course I'm not. My entire philosophy is that we get to be ourselves, and it is by being ourselves that we get to have the successful life that actually suits us, the one we feel at home in, the one where there isn't any inconvenient tear leakage because we're not pushing ourselves to that brink all the time. To me, the inconvenient tear leakage appeared after I suppressed what was really happening, after my way of coping as a sensitive introvert going into a highly stressful job was to put on a suit of armour, to put on power boots, to find like a theme tune for the day. And all of those things are highly recommended, aren't they? People recommend them quite often to say how to get the best out of your day, and they can work in the right way. But if you're using them to suppress the fact that actually you're really stressed, your life isn't working for you, you're just not okay, you're just not, this isn't the life you intended, this isn't what you wanted. If you're pushing down rather than listening to what's going on, then for me, this is what I see for myself and clients, is that you'll get this inconvenient tear leakage, because it's almost like it's the only way the stress can leave your body. It might actually be that, I don't know. I'm not really interested in, because I have an issue where I can get stuck in my head and over geek out on stuff. I've stopped reading about research into stress. There's not actually that much research in tears. When I last looked, there was only one person in the world really looking at tears. I hope there's more people now, because I'm sure there's important things for us as humans to learn. Anyway, I'm not interested in the why. I have a psychology degree. I've studied with a Zen master doing Zen yoga. So we've looked at different stress levels and the physiological consequences of that. I'm not really interested. Why? Because if you're like me, there's enough stuff in your head. I mean, if you're like me, if you're like where I was, there's enough stuff in your head and you don't really need more information. And if you do want it, you can go somewhere else. I'm not going to give you a lecture on stress, tears, all that kind of stuff, because I don't think you need it. Personally, I just don't think you need it. I got very, very, very into geeking out on research about, meditation, mindfulness. It really didn't help me. What I actually needed to do was deal with the overwhelm, look after myself better, and stop allowing my mind to rule the roost, because it was just destroying my health, and I wasn't really listening to what I really, really wanted to do. So let's just think about some of the other things that might be going on for you that point to overwhelm being the thing that I would recommend you deal with first. So another one is trouble switching off. And I think we can all relate to this, where we just get into the do phase or mode, and then actually we get stuck in it. It's like the on-off switch just doesn't work anymore. And ideally, we want to be able to move into the do phase with real clear priorities, really connected to what we actually want, the bigger picture, without any procrastination. So we just go, right, today I want to achieve this, bang, and we do it. And then when we're done, even though we're never done, because that's life, right? There's always more to do, which is a good thing, but it can be difficult to manage. We can then switch off and do the other things we want to do. So this ability to move from one mode to the next, that flexibility, that lovely ability to flow between one. It's something I'm still practicing, but I know that I'm getting better and better at it. And this is what I help my clients do. The ability to say, actually, what I really, really want to do is take some time off and do nothing. Or what I really, really want to do is just sit and read my book. But I find that difficult because it's like, being able to, it's weird, isn't it, really? Because we work really hard to have a life where we can feel at home, where we have more freedom and choice, and where we get to do things like have a nap on a Saturday afternoon, or just go and read a whole novel, or go to an exercise class, or go for a walk, or just do nothing, or do lots, like reorganize the whole attic, or go for a promotion at work, or build a business. Like, the whole point is that we get to choose what we want to do and where our energy is going, where our attention's going, where our time's going. And what actually happens is, as we get more and more overwhelmed, that's what we lose. The ability to switch on with purpose and switch off with purpose. We lose that. When you want that back, woohoo! Let's just talk about some more things that might be going on for you first. So another thing is exhaustion. And by that I mean suddenly you can't recover. So in the past, you might have been able to, overwork for a bit, get something done, and then take some time off, or just slow down and completely recover. And now you seem to have lost the ability to recover. And so that you end up with this kind of dragging heaviness of exhaustion. It's like, what's going on? What's wrong with me? And then you might start looking at diet and exercise and stress relief techniques. And then it's just more to do. So exhaustion, that inability to recover, I think it's really, really important signal to listen to. Loss of a sense of fun. So this sudden, it's really hard to just switch off and have fun. It's like everything's so serious because everything's become about coping and pushing on through in order to get stuff done so that then we can have a break and have fun. And it's that, it's related to the ability, isn't it, to switch off and to choose how you use your time and energy. But fun, I think, is a really important one, because it's almost like we just get more and more serious. And it's not who we are. It's like, this leads to the next one. It's like you just don't feel like yourself anymore. There's some part of you missing, or a connection to yourself missing. Now, there isn't part of you missing. I want to make this really clear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's the feeling that we're tapping into here. So these are all things that you can notice to what degree, or if they're present for you at the moment. And that signals, which just, to me, it's useful information about what's going on for you. So it may sound really depressing, but actually it's not, because these are common symptoms of severe overwhelm that I went through, that my clients went through. It's normal. That as soon as I tell you it's normal, I hope you get a sense of relief, oh, that's okay then, so we can do something about it, because we can, absolutely. And then what happens is, because we notice all of these things that feel like problems, we start trying to solve them. So I mentioned before that I went through this whole phase of trying to solve the stress and the lack of energy by Googling how to sleep better, how to relax more, how to de-stress. I was using meditation, mindfulness, yoga, all of these things. And we can really get into this state of feeling like we are actually a project, we are a problem to be solved. And obviously that in itself becomes a problem, because when we treat ourselves as if there's something wrong with us, then immediately we're not really on our own sides, we're judging ourselves. So we actually add to our overwhelm, and we also add to our exhaustion because we're giving ourselves more things to do. So on top of all of the stuff we already had in our full lives, we now have this whole project of trying to improve ourselves so that we fit into this life. So it's like an invisible double whammy. And overwhelm's very sneaky at convincing ourselves that we need to do more. So that's another one to watch out for. And then another thing that starts to happen is we start to believe that if only we just get through to project done, weekend, holiday, whatever it is, so this like future magical time, or if we just get this done, so if we just complete something, or if we can just be better in some way. So this is linked to, if I treating yourself as a problem to be solved, if I just solve this problem, like maybe you've got a problem with your back, or I don't know, sleep, or there's something so this is the magical thinking of overwhelm, where we think if only this happens, when this happens, then everything will be restored to how things used to be. And this is really dangerous thinking, because actually all of that kind of thing leads to the invisible double whammy of even more to do, even more overwhelm, even more to fail at. Really not good. So just notice if any of that is kind of ringing true for you without judgment. So I just invite you to all of these things I'm saying to notice completely neutrally, which is not easy. So this is how I would do it. Notice, oh yeah, that resonates. Oh no, that doesn't resonate. Oh yeah, that really resonates. Oh my goodness, I didn't even realize that. Oh, this is terrible. This is a disaster. And then you're noticing your reaction, and then on top of that you can notice if the mind is weighing in with any judgment, shoulds, oughts, anything at all. So you can just notice layers upon layers of stuff that might not have been visible to you before. How much you should yourself, how much you think you ought to be different, how much you're judging me and thinking, oh no, Heidi, I'm not that bad, or you say it's okay, Heidi, but it's really terrible. So you could be judging me, you could be judging yourself. In general, the mind is really, really good at judging. It's just how it works to keep us safe, but it's not always helpful because it's not particularly a happy way to look at life. And all of these things add to a sense of life being hard. Everything becomes hard. It's just hard. Why is life so hard? Everything's so frustrating. Why can I not move that forward? Why am I so tired? Why is it so hard to sleep? Why? It's just hard. And this anger about it being hard, I think, is useful, because that can drive you to say, right, I'm going to do something about it. I've had enough. And hopefully it can lead you to a stage where you go, right, this is not the life I intended to live. This is not what I worked so hard for. The life I had in mind was much nicer than this. The life I had in mind when I worked so hard had a lot more freedom, choice, ease. I felt better. I felt healthier. I found it easy to take weekends off, whatever it is. I found it easier to get stuff done, so just noticing the difference between how things are and what you actually had in mind when you worked really, really hard. Really, really important. Noticing that it's hard and you don't like it, even though that's not very nice. Having to face up to that is unpleasant, but it's a really, really good place to be, because it gives you the motivation to say, right, I'm doing something about it. I'm taking it seriously. Because the problem is that when we're stuck in if I just get that done, or if I just get through to the next holiday, when I move house, when I get that promotion, when I get that client, everything will magically be better. The problem with that stage is it can go on for a long time. It went on for years and years for me, probably a decade, and it costs a lot, and it's a trickster. So what it does is, because things do get better for a short amount of time, or to a certain extent getting things done does work, even if the cost is really high. Over a long term, getting stuff done by pushing yourself to exhaustion costs, and you can kind of surf that verge of burnout and breaking for quite a long time by, kind of slightly rearranging things, by booking a slightly longer holiday or more massages, or, because those things are all good things. But fundamentally, something's wrong because your life isn't working for you. And the temptation is to go, well, there's something wrong with you. But what I really want to say to you today is, don't blame yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing wrong at all. It's overwhelm. And it's time we took overwhelm more seriously. So let me explain. So overwhelm can be disparaged quite easily. Oh, that person's always complaining they're overwhelmed. I'm not talking about that person. I'm talking about you. You're the person who doesn't tend to complain that they're overwhelmed. You're the kind of person who just gets on with it. And it's that which makes you my kind of person. I'm your biggest cheerleader. But you have to take overwhelm more seriously than maybe other people do. And the reason for that is you're not willing to settle. So a lot of people who complain about feeling overwhelmed, who come to you and ask for your help, and you help relieve some of their stress and overwhelm, they're actually fine. And the reason they're fine is they will always ask for help, and they will always offload stuff to other people, and they will always moan. And I'm not saying they always will, and this isn't a judgment, but there's a difference between people who are actually just like, well, life is overwhelming, but actually I'm kind of all right with that, and you who wants more. So it's the wanting more that is good, but means that to have it, because you are the kind of person who wants your full life, your full adventure. Settling's not going to work for you. You've considered downsizing your dreams. You've considered reducing your responsibility so you're not feeling so overwhelmed or pressured, but that won't work for you, because actually you're the kind of person who wants to live your life to the full. Now, this actually means that you're, to me, what I would call a struggling rebel. So you want to rebel against the status quo, which says overwhelm, exhaustion, you just have to put up with it. That's just how things are. If you want the level of success and the lifestyle you want, you're just going to have to put up with it. Whereas you're saying, actually, I don't want to put up with it. And I am going to find a solution because I believe in being happy. I believe in being well. I believe in being able to be present with those I love. I believe in enjoying the life I worked so hard for. And it's that inability to accept that this is just the way things are. That's the struggle. So that's, to me, is you're a rebel. You're not willing to just settle. And that's good. I love you. You're brilliant. Stay with me. Now, this means you're just going to have to find a different way to do things. And luckily for you, that's what the Overwhelm is Optional podcast is all about. So here's why overwhelm's optional. First of all, overwhelm is inevitable. Let's start there. Overwhelm's inevitable because the human mind isn't designed to be in charge. It's just not. In general, the human mind tends to be very negative because its entire bias is to keep you safe. That's why it's judging all the time. It's going, is that dangerous? Is that safe? And it's making really, really fast decisions about threats. And because we are taught from a very young age not to trust our hearts, not to follow our hearts, not to listen to our bodies. No, you can't go to the toilet now. You have to have a wee before you get in the car. Now, I'm not saying that's bad, because we have to train our bladders. We have to be sociable. We have to live within society. And also we want control of our bladders. We want manners. We want the ability to pause and wait before we eat. We can't, we don't want to be not socialized. But when we're taught, particularly as we get older, particularly at school, I'm thinking of, when you're told you need to work really, really hard so that you can have a better life. And then it becomes about overworking. For some people, for you, not for everyone. So some people hear the advice to overwork and revise to get good exam results and then study for years ahead of that, or that setting up a business is hard and you have to overwork, that's just part of it. Some people hear that and just brush it off. They just do. But you don't. You take it on board. You take it seriously. And that's why you're such a gift to the world. Because you don't let people down. You always do a good job. You're great. You're amazing. You're reliable. I'd work with you. And I don't just mean work with you as your coach. I mean, I'd work with you as in the kind of people, as I build my business, that I'll be employing will be people like you. Because you're trustworthy, have high standards, but also you want your full adventure. And there's something for me really wonderful about people who want that. You know, it's like, you don't want to just be serious and work really hard and, you know, achieve. No, you also want to sit and read a book. You also want to gaze at a sunset. You also want to laugh and have fun and play with your dog. Like, that's a really good mix. It's who I am, and I love me and I love my clients. So let's talk about overwhelm. What happens is we are trained from a young age to overuse our mind, to disconnect from our hearts, because it's dangerous to follow your heart. You'll end up pregnant and barefoot in the kitchen. You can't do art, you must do science. And I'm not saying none of this is true. I'm not an advocate for just following your heart. What I'm saying is that when we are taught to not listen to our bodies, to sit still, not fidget, even our bodies really need to move, when everything about our bodies is kind of like slightly disparaged. Oh, you're not hungry again. You've just had a drink. How can you need another drink? You've just been to the toilet. How can you be tired? Why are you not going to sleep? Now, within that is the socialization, as I've said, but there comes a point where we can take it too far. That's what the inconvenient tear leakage is. That's what the exhaustion is. That's what the weird aches and pains are. That's what the bumping into things and ending up with a weird bruise is. You know, that's the inability to sleep. It's when we disconnect from our bodies, and when we stop listening to our bodies, when we, you know, the body's saying, yeah, I'm tired, I need to rest now. Yeah, I'm hungry, I need food. And we're like, no, I'll just get this done. I'll just work through my lunch break so that I can finish work earlier. The more we do that, the more we lose a really, really important part of our internal navigation system, our compass. So for me, overwhelm is inevitable because we've learnt to overuse our mind. So we're overloading the mind. We're holding a lot in there. We're asking the mind to make all decisions. So instead of deciding we're thirsty, we have a drink, we might, for example, Google how much water we ought to have. So instead of trusting our bodies, oh, I'm thirsty, I'll drink water, I'll be fine. More and more the messaging is you don't know how much water you need to drink. More and more we're getting information on what to eat, when to eat, how to sleep, how to exercise. You know, there's so much information related to our bodies, you know, to outsource what our body does. Because we have this disconnection, this lack of respect, I believe, for the body. Now, the body is amazing. The body is so incredible. And reconnecting to the body and watching how it maintains itself, how it's always there for you, how it self-heals and self-regulates, and how it really responds to self-care, you know, is such a beautiful adventure. That I love watching my clients go through. It's such a privilege. The body is amazing. And then the heart, you know, that daring to listen to your heart, that can really, really help, obviously, in having more happiness, in purpose, in living in a way that works for you. But that can actually be even harder than listening to the body, because we often from the heart, we don't just get, oh, this will make me happy. We also get, yeah, that's not making me happy. You know, so it can be tricky. I think we are particularly warned against listening to the heart, particularly warned against that culturally. So, and then for the mind, I believe, really needs and responds well to practices. And all my practices are tiny, huge, life-changing practices, things that fit into your life when you're overwhelmed and are really, really easy to use, that don't add to your overwhelm. Very, very important. So the mind really needs practices like kind of like stabilizers for the mind, keeping the mind as positive as possible, allowing the fear and self-doubt and stuff that comes up to be released in a way that's helpful rather than like drudging through masses of self-development hell, when we're just like always working on ourselves. I need to get rid of this, I need to improve this, I need to revisit my past and do this. There's time for in your life to choose whether you want to have therapy or whether you want to do some deep work, but there's also a time when we can just say, okay, enough, I've been doing self-development for a long time, and it's time to just like capitalize on all of that growth and really accept and love myself. So the mind really needs practices that help it stay out of overwhelm. So I always tackle the overwhelm first, because if you see it like this, when we're in overwhelm, we can't think clearly, can we? By definition, that's how we know we're overwhelmed. We're like, oh my God, I can't see the wood from the trees. It's really hard to make a decision. I don't really know if this is the right thing. I'm finding it really hard to focus. I keep procrastinating. When I do get time to myself, I don't really know what to do with it because I've forgotten how to use it. So this is a signal to me that this isn't the time to make a decision. This isn't the time to try and get things done. When you're overwhelmed, you need something that gets you out of overwhelm first. So prioritizing, learning to prioritize, dealing with your overwhelm first, preferably first thing every morning, before you rush to get stuff done, before you try and make decisions, that's key. Because what you're doing then is you're learning to control your attention. You're saying, okay, it matters to me that my mind has some clarity, getting some headspace before starting your day, before deciding how much of your time and energy you're going to commit to your to-do list, which things on there. So when we're stuck in overwhelm, we're reacting all the time and it's exhausting. So we're just like, it's like swatting flies, isn't it? It's like, I've got to get that done. If I get that done, then I'll have some space. If I get that done, get that done, get done. And because we can't control life, so on top of our to-do list is all of the other stuff that happens, it's always out of control. And it's really, really unpleasant. Everything's harder. We're misusing our energy. So when people come to me and they're like, oh, I don't have any energy, and then I just do some work on their overwhelm, they're really surprised that they have more energy. And this is because when you're in overwhelm, it's easy to take a lot of ineffective action in the mistaken belief that getting stuff done will provide relief from the overwhelm. So that everything we do becomes about trying to find space for ourselves, when actually the key is to deal with the overwhelm, to take it seriously. Overwhelm is serious. It's inevitable because of the way we've set up, because of the way the mind has evolved, but also the way that we have set up the modern world, where there is so much to overwhelm us. So the internet is like a big source of overwhelm, isn't it? It's got tons of amazing information. And it's also got lots of stuff that can trigger us into fear, doubt, anxiety, more things to do, more fake emergencies, and can really, really overload the mind very, very easily. So really the internet should be used with care, but that's a whole nother episode. So prioritizing, taking overwhelm seriously, realizing where you are at the moment. So all of the things I mentioned earlier in the episode, how many of those feel true for you and to what extent? So just taking stock, noticing how much overwhelm you're experiencing at the moment, and then taking it seriously. So this is what I would do. I would find practices that help you deal with the overwhelm first. So I have lots of practices, obviously, because this is what I specialize in. The first one I would gift to you is the 1 minute mark, because that's a 1 minute life-changing audio that quite literally gets you out of overwhelm immediately. Using that daily will make a difference. That's the absolute place to start. Everybody uses it. It's brilliant. So you can get that by going to heidimark.co.uk, the 1 minute mark, and then you sign up to my mailing list, and I will send you 3 emails to help you, to support you in using that audio, because sometimes people just listen to it once and then they forget, because that's the nature of being overwhelmed, right? With the best will in the world, you can't keep signing up for lots of different things to help and then not using them. That's not going to work. Which brings me on to the next thing, really, is upping your commitment to yourself. So when when people join my group program, Get Your Life Back, for 90 days in a row, they commit, and then they commit further, obviously, but just taking those 12 weeks and just every single day doing the morning promise, which is committing to yourself first, that changes everything, because you're saying, I matter, I'm a priority, I'm going to deal with the overwhelm first. And starting your day with a commitment to yourself, and deepening that as you go through your life, thinking, well, actually, I really want to feel this today. And then you can literally bring that into the morning promise. So each day you do the morning promise, it has a slightly different flavour depending on what it is that you're dealing with or what you want to call more of into your life. So however you want to do it, committing to yourself as important. Now, if you think about it, if you're the go-to person to get things done, if you're in a position of professional responsibility, if a lot of people are depending on you, even if you think it's selfish to put yourself first, from the point of view of all the people relying on you, it's clearly not. So if you can't do it for yourself, do it for them first. Just start however you can get started with this. Notice the overwhelm. Notice the symptoms of overwhelm that I've described. Take care of yourself by saying, I matter, and commit to doing something about the overwhelm first. I just wanted to end this episode by sharing a client win. So all of the people I work with, whether inside my group program, Get Your Life Back, or my one-to-one clients, I am their biggest cheerleader. So I'm always going to take the opportunity, when I remember, to share client wins. And I really wanted to share this very special one this week. So it was the realizing that you can look after yourself, you can prioritize yourself, you can prioritize doing the things that you want to do without letting anyone else down. Now, this is a client win for more than one client, but this week I really want to celebrate this client who's really, really engaged with the coaching and has really practiced the listening to what she wants to do, and has started to integrate into her life many of the things that she's always wanted to do. But on top of that, just noticing the impact on other people. And what actually happens when we do this, when we dare to prioritize ourselves, is that the people around us either don't notice, and that's quite interesting, or they're pleased because we're easier to be around. So I just really wanted to share that, because often we think that we can't have what we want and that we just have to put up with the overwhelm. But then we get stuck in the struggle. So it's the struggling rebel state of, yeah, I wanted more than this, but I don't know how to make it happen. So I'm just going to see if I can keep getting through, because things are bound to get better when. But actually, the truth is that when we deal with the overwhelm, we learn to prioritize ourselves. When we learn to really control our attention, deal with the overwhelm, give the mind practices to just stabilize it and to make it normal to take decisions and action out of overwhelm with space for ourselves, to be able to respond and not react. When we start to really listen to our bodies and allow our hearts to guide us towards the kind of life we really want, not only is it easier to do that, but it's actually nobody really notices. Like, we think it's going to be a big deal, that's going to disrupt things, but the opposite happens. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope that it's inspired you to really listen to what's going on for you and to do something about the overwhelm. So instead of trying to do something about the exhaustion, the stress, needing to be more organised, needing to keep everyone happy, needing to be fitter, needing to sleep better, whatever it is, instead of all of those things, yourself as this big project, just deal with the overwhelm first. Because that is the key. That is the key to unlocking the way to set up your life in a way that works for you, where you feel at home in your life, where you can continue to be, if you choose to be, the person that people rely on, but you can be happy in doing it. And of course, if you'd like help in doing that, if you'd like to just cut all the working out for yourself, if you want to hire me as your coach and your biggest cheerleader, then just hop on over to heidimarke.co.uk, click on the work with me page, and then just book a discovery call so we can talk about whether we're a fit as coach and client to work together. Okay, have a great week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If this resonates with you, please use the like, subscribe and share buttons to help other people find their way here too. And please do go to www.heidimarke.co.uk/the 1 minute mark with an E to join my mailing list and receive my free 1 minute life-changing audio practice.